Brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinions. And hello, Christian, who's already in the chat. Great to see you there. And don't forget, we are live at 8 p.m. every Tuesday night talking about all your hot topics in rugby. Except, you know what? That whole Saracens thing, we're going to give that a miss tonight because I did a whole 20-minute video on it yesterday. So if you're a supporter of DrivingMaul, head over to drivingmaul.com and you can watch that video and get all my insights and opinions on the Saracens relegation issue. Tonight, it's all about super rugby and the New Zealand conference. Remember, 2 weeks ago, I previewed the South Africa conference with Herman and John, so you can go back and watch that one if you like. I'll put the links down below in the comments, in the notes, sorry. And then last week, Shane and I went through the Australia conference, and tonight I have two absolute experts that aren't going to confuse me at all because I've got Steve and Stephen, which is going to be really easy to do, isn't it, guys?
Oh, that's a great name, isn't it? It's clearly a great name.
Clearly a great name, yes, absolutely. And Stephen, great to have you on as well.
Yeah, oh, this is fantastic. Always a privilege and a pleasure. But I was going to say, if it helps, maybe you can call me by my Māori name, which is Tiffany.
Sorry, which is?
That's the Māori name for Stephen. No, that's too much for you. We'll just stick with. We'll just tell you what. We'll stick with Stephen.
Yep.
And Steve.
And Steve, or cornflake. If I get too confused. So hi to everyone else who's in chat. Yeah, Nocturnal Rights, Quagga as well. Thank you for joining us. And let us know any questions you have around the New Zealand conference in particular, but Super Rugby in general as well in the live chat, and we'll get to those. But let's kick off and with the New Zealand conference, remind ourselves what happened in 2019. Basically, the Crusaders won it, didn't they? But they topped the conference with 58 points and 11 wins. The Hurricanes with 12 wins came second in the conference on 53 points. So one more win, but they didn't get the tri-bonus points in all the two draws the Crusaders have. Remember, one of those being, three draws. One of those being that called-off game between the Highlanders and the Crusaders due to the obviously Christchurch attacks. In third place came the Chiefs on 36 points, so 53 down to 36. Big old gap between the Hurricanes and the Chiefs. Highlanders in fourth place, also on 36 points, and then finally the Blues in last with 30 points. Now, one thing I spotted on the old table, which I thought was a bit of fun, was that the Chiefs might have won more games than the Highlanders, and hence they're above them on 36, even though they're on the same points. But the Chiefs had a negative 14 points difference, whereas the Highlanders had a positive 49. So it was a weird old table, wasn't it? Really, when you look at things like the team that won the competition didn't win the most games. It was all a bit strange. Steve.
Oh well, that's the delight of Super Rugby, isn't it? I mean, that's why we all like it. That's why we all watch it. I mean, it's a long season, and points differential, bonus points, all those little things come into play so much. And it's not always, about just getting the win. I mean, so many more things come into it. And I mean, when you've got a team like the Sunwolves that are trekking around there, it's a great opportunity to get heaps of points as well. So that's what they've got to take advantage of. Make sure they can pile on as many as they can. Get as many bonus points. If you're going to lose, you want to lose close. I think bonus points always are pretty much second to a win, the most important thing that you can target throughout a game. So, it's a long season, and it just goes to show that just prioritising that one result is not always, going to get you to the top.
True. Actually, I was going to say, guys, the irony of that Sunwolves result, I remember I think the Highlanders travelling away and putting a bucket load of points on the Sunwolves, but I can also recall the Sunwolves going to Hamilton and beating the Chiefs. If I recall, guys, when the Chiefs didn't really start the season too well, but to be fair to them, they actually finished the season reasonably well. They obviously had a few bodies missing at the beginning, got a few back. I think they got Jack Debrasini back the first time running the cutter, and probably by the end of the season, gee whiz, even if you think back to the Hawaii Hagawaris game, was that a quarterfinal or a semi-final? They could have and probably should have won that game.
Yeah, the Chiefs' problem, and it's been a problem for them for a few years now, it has been just keeping players fit. Their injury list is one of the longest in New Zealand. And yeah, Warren Gatland's obviously come in there. I guess the big question is, has he got himself a new strength and conditioning coach? and a new physio, because boy, perhaps those are the changes they needed rather than any personnel changes on the park. It's more just who can give good massages and keep these players in one piece.
Or maybe more of them.
What, more players? Oh dear.
No. More physios.
More physios.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. You know what? With some of the things that have happened in Chiefs country before, having a good rub down after the game might not be such a good idea. So
the man is on
fire. Just one other little quirky thing I saw in the stats from last year was that the Chiefs, they had minus 14 points difference, but they scored more tries. So tries for 63. Sorry, tries against 59, which I guess goes to show that a kicker is also kind of important as well to get those points up there. So it's all good and well scoring in fives, but you'll be scoring in sevens and adding the odd three as well, because if you miss those kicks, it all adds up at the end of the day. So Batman wants 2 cents rugby on as well, and maybe even G-Man. Well, we'll have to see. There's only so many voices we can have, and let's be honest, keeping it under an hour is always difficult. But so let's go through. I was going to go through the top down, i.e. from last year's results, starting off with the Crusaders. If you boys are happy with that looking at it that way, you know, get the painful bit out of the way first. As we know, is this purely going to be again who loses to the Crusaders in the final, or can we expect a bit more competition this year, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. On paper, the Crusaders, they still look a good side on paper. We saw how well Tasman, disguised as a Super Rugby team, went in the Mitre 10 Cup, and a lot of those guys, when I look down, are in the squad. And you know, one of the strengths of the Crusaders is having that ability to actually select guys from outside their region. And you know, I can see a couple of boys that they've picked who I think are going to go really great guns. Ethan Roots from North Harbour, he's a damn good footballer. Also the likes of Isi Tuangafasi, he's got a full contract this year. You know, they just know how to select guys and bring them into that squad and make them better players. Of course, they're going to miss their experienced heads. That's going to be the real interesting things. You know, guys like Todd Blackadder and Crotty. I didn't really mention the All Blacks, but it always seems like those hardcore guys or those experienced guys.
Sorry, Todd Blackadder.
No, sorry, Ethan. Did I say Todd Blackadder? Oh God, what am I thinking of? I might have been thinking Ethan Blackadder.
Ethan Blackadder's there, unless he's injured. He's in the squad. But okay, so let's just run through a bit about this, because 8 new players, as you say, just one of them is from a non-Crusaders province. So yeah, all the rest from Canterbury and Tasman, which mean that whole Ben Darwin connectivity kind of thing that we talk about occasionally is there. All these players know each other. There's going to be no big surprises. But as far as here's some of the players that have left, as you say, experience is something that's going to rank up quite a bit on this. Owen Franks, Tim Perry in the props, Ben Fennell in the hookers, Sam Whitelock at lock, Tafua, Todd and Kieran Reid from those Lucy's positions, Mitchell Hunt in the fly half, Tim Bateman and Ryan Crotty, again 2 real experienced players in the centres, and perhaps the only player that I wouldn't put down as being experienced is Nene Padiva, the winger who's left and gone now to the Highlanders. But the rest, yeah, experience in bucket loads has left the province. Are you worried by that, Steve?
I mean, I'm probably going to talk about this a million times over this next hour, but this year of Super Rugby, Mitre 10 Cup, everything going on this year is the best year to watch rugby, because following the World Cup, all these players all go, right, I'm out of here. I'm off to chase the big bucks. I'm off to whatever, finish off my career, go to Japan, you know, everything that they do. Now is when we get to see what that next tier is like. Now we get to see all these new guys come through, the guys that have been on the fringes for those last couple of years. Now they push forward a bit. It's the greatest year because you don't sit here like last year. Super Rugby obviously took a massive backseat. And we obviously knew 95% of who's going to play for the All Blacks, who's going to play for the Wallabies, who's going to play for the Springboks going into the World Cup. Most things are all sorted. So now it's great because we get to see a whole fresh range, and there's so many players here that could potentially, with a great season, step it up into further honours. So that's what I love about this season. And Crusaders have that ability, like you guys have said. They just completely keep on churning out those quality players. They've got that environment, they've got that coaching ability, that staff there, and they know these guys. Like you said, Paul, guys from the Canterbury catchment, guys from Tasman, they've played together already with a lot of these teams. They just know each other and they know the systems and they know it so well. It just is kind of a natural progression for them. There's nothing really new to learn. They just come straight in and they play their game. And a lot of that feeding and new sort of team thing is already done. So they're already one step ahead of everyone else. And it's just why the Crusaders just keep getting better and better players, new players, and it just keeps rolling on over. So I have full faith. All those names you've named already that are gone, huge names. I mean, the back row that loses a guy like Telford, Todd and Reed, they'll come through, and we'll be talking about these new guys that have come through and just stormed into the Crusaders team and made more names for themselves. So yeah, it'll just be, it's that great time of the rugby calendar, isn't it? When you just get all these new names coming through, and we'll just see what the Crusaders do again in another 4-year cycle.
So all that positivity around this. Any concerns at all for the Crusaders? For either of you?
Not a great deal. I suppose when you won it 3 times in a row, getting up again and doing it a 4th time can be a little bit difficult. But they've got the right man in charge. I mean, to say it's probably a bonus that they've got still got Scott Robertson. He'll have a point to prove. No question. No question there. And sometimes when you do get a few new faces in, it can recharge your team. And I suppose from a Crusaders point of view, just when those real tight games, when there's those experienced heads around that can basically pull them in, that's about really the only issue I can see with this Crusaders side. But there's still enough experience there with Joe Moody, Romano, guys like that.
So for me, there are just kind of trying some new technique kind of work. For me, there are 2 areas that I'd be concerned about, or as a Crusaders fan. One is that pack, that scrum in particular, didn't look so fresh when Franks and Moody were missing last year, and there's nobody new in there. They've just lost 2 players, so I'd still be concerned around that scrum time because as I say, Franks isn't going to be there at all. Secondly, is going to be particularly the number 7 jersey. Okay, you've got Fetzer Douglas, who come into that 8 jersey quite nicely. Ethan Blackadder probably into that first choice in that 6 jersey. But that 7-1, you've got 4 new guys in that loose trio. So it's going to be a real big fight for that number 7 jersey in particular. So I'd be a little bit of concern there. And finally, the other point is you've got Enor and Goodhue, which is a great, or Goodhue and Enor actually in that order, for in the centres there, but there's not much beneath that. I think a bit thin perhaps in the centres. Those would be my 3 areas where I might just have a slight concern for the Crusaders. Not a big issue, but just a slight concern.
It's kind of the flip side of what I said before, isn't it? All these great new players you can find at the next gem, the next star, but also they're unproven at this level, isn't it? And you mentioned the back row, a lot of new faces there. Probably a big concern for the Crusaders, adding to your 3 already, it would be if Richie Mo'unga went down in a heap and had a terrible injury. Mr. One Cap All Black, I mean, what's he at? He was obviously a couple of years ago the shining light of the next real gem, but he hasn't really come on much since then. He's been surpassed quite considerably by others. And is this year that Brett Cameron becomes what he's been destined to be? I mean, we've got to find out, because that depth with Mitch Hunt, who did a lot off the bench, is gone. And now he's really got to step up into that role that he did off the bench, probably playing teams like the Sunwolves. And, he's got to make that claim for what he probably was meant to do a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he comes through. Fergus Burke is the 3rd fly half in there, who, from the Canterbury region. But yeah, as you say, so it's quite a bit of weight on Brett Cameron's shoulders there. You're quite right. Hurricanes then, second up. Now, we're going to get on to another team that's had more change than the Hurricanes, but Yeah, this is a bit of a clear out for them. They've lost Chris Eves, Glenda Hayes, Smith, Tumanga Allen in the props. James O'Reilly at hooker, but that's no big deal really there, because obviously they've got three good hookers. Cringe, Ferreira, Sam Lucy in the locks missing. Hayden Bedwell, Curtis, Sam Hayward gone. Finley Christie, Richard Judd disappeared. Bowden Barrett was gone. Matt Proctor, Salisu Rayasi, and Nay Molascari. I don't think he played last season anyway. So quite a few names missing there. But I guess the big thing is that is Bowden Barrett's gone, and those two good guys. I mean, Finley Christie and Richard Judd, those two guys who have been backing up TJ Farinara pretty well, also disappearing as well. So it's a bit of the decision-making area for the Hurricanes is a bit up in the air, isn't it? And also, actually, forgetting about this, is that Ali Surveyor is injured as well, isn't he, for most of the season. So, Steve, I'll let you have first bite at this. Is this a rebuilding year for the Hurricanes, or can they push on?
Well, to be honest with you, I think they've actually recruited fairly well in some pretty key areas. You mentioned a lot of props, a lot of experience went away there, but Tyrell Lomax, I mean, that is probably the pickup just about of the season for a guy. I mean, the Blues will argue it's going to be obviously Bowden Barrett, but let's be fair, how much impact's he going to really have on... Anyway, we'll talk about the Blues later. Lomax, a huge pickup, huge prop to get. He's a real up-and-comer. He's going to be a star. That's a massive loss to the Highlanders for me. You move on to the number 9s. To be fair, I think the Hurricanes are better off here. Jamie Booth, last season at the Sunwolves, was a massive star. He's been pretty average for a long time, but he really outshone that side, and he was huge in that link-up play between the forward pack and the back line. Like I said, decision-making, knowing where to go, what to go, commanding that pack around, which, I mean, you know what the Sunwolves are like. There's players from all over the globe that don that Sunwolves shirt. So the ability he had to make that continuity in that team was huge. And I think that's a great boost to have him there behind Perenara. So that's going to certainly boost them up. The question mark I've really got is they've picked up Cors Van Wyk from the Sharks. A real question mark, and really does that leave the question mark of the depth of New Zealand they've got in the wingers. They've gone away to South Africa, of all places. A really strange pickup for me on that one. But they will miss the Barrett. And I don't think there's too much else. I think that's a big loss. Everything else I think they've replaced quite nicely. But yeah, it's going to be huge pressure on that number 10 jumper to get anything from this Hurricanes team. And huge pressure on the likes of Laumapis, the Arsos, and those sort of guys to probably drag whoever's going to be wearing that number 10 jumper through the mud.
So, but Stephen, obviously, Steve's they've gone there with Tyrell Lomax, but surely the big name here in this new signing is Puri Rakati Stones, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a pretty handy footballer, and just from a family piece, we're pretty delighted from. I know, chatting to a couple of people who watched the Crusaders game, even though they took a bit of a beating last weekend, he scrummed really well when he came on, and he actually went onto the tight head side and pretty much had a full 40 minutes, which is quite impressive. So it'll be really interesting to actually see who the Hurricanes start. They've got another preseason game at Takapuna Rugby Club on Friday afternoon against the Blues. So it'll be interesting. I would imagine Jason Holland will probably put his shadow, we'll probably start with a shadow 15. So the real interest to me is who his starting tight head and loose head will be, because last against Canterbury, he started with Tyrell Lomax and Fraser Armstrong, and they actually took a bit of tap against Canterbury at scrum time. So, so I was told from somebody actually watching the game. It's a solid enough pack, but boy, I can't help feel they've lost two or three of their best players, and Artie Savia and Bowden Barrett. And these guys have won games for them, for crying out loud. Single-handedly had a real influence on game. And I suppose the concern for the Hurricanes is just losing those real influence guys that can do something absolutely brilliant. It's a concern. It's a good team on paper. I like the look of all the midfield options they've got. They've got some brilliant midfield options, which sort of negates the loss of Matt Proctor, who's been very, very good for them. And they've got enough quality on the wings, Geordie Barrett and co, and Chase Tiatia at fullback. So, hey, hard to know, really, guys. I do like as Steve said, their halfbacks as well. The stable of halfbacks they've got. Jonathan Tomatani from Counties. I thought the poor Counties team was very good last year, so they got plenty of depth. A lot of depth in some areas, a bit shaky in others.
Yeah, if Fletcher Smith doesn't fire this year, I think they're in for a real long one, to be honest with you. I don't rate Garden Basher at this level. Decent, very, very good Minor 10 Cup level, but I don't think he's a Super Rugby level, really, personally. And I think, so yes, I think it comes down to, if Fletcher Smith has a good year, then it could be, they could go well. Otherwise, I think it's a bit of a rebuilding year, to be honest with you. And that pack's not going to give him an armchair ride, as Bowden Barrett very well knows. So, yeah, it's those outside backs, if they get decent ball, will rip teams to pieces. If they get decent ball. I think that's always been the issue with the Hurricanes. So, different year, same story, nearly. Just with that question mark around 10, I think.
Just one more point to add on about the Canes before you move on, Paul. They start their season in an absolute baptism of fire because they're off to South Africa. They start in Newlands against the Stormers. That's game one for them. So they're off to that, and that's going to be a really difficult start. But then second to that, they're off to face the Jaguares. So there you go, 1-2, Stormers, Jaguares, both on the road before they finally go back to face the Sharks. So we're going to find out what these guys are made of pretty quick.
And that Stormers side is a real decent side. Herman, a bit tongue-in-cheek, said that he was backing them to win the whole competition. Now, I think that's probably a step too far for them, but that Stormers side is actually a decent side this year, or has the personnel on paper to be a decent side this year. So yeah, that is not an easy, not an easy first up game. Talking of changes though, and potentially the most significant signing of the entire competition is Warren Gatland to the Chiefs, living in Hamilton, living in Chiefs country. There is a really big buzz and a lot of expectation that Gatland can do what Colin Cooper couldn't, and should turn this team into a team that challenges straight away. So some interesting, I think, is perhaps the way I would put it, kind of recruitments here. A bit of a change in the props and the hookers. Nothing there that I'm particularly sort of concerned about. Kevin Kane-Hayes was injured, but he didn't even play last season. Into the locks, Brady Retallick missing. And that's a big one for me. They're locking with Allardyce and Ardron. They've got a decent couple of locks there, but it gets pretty thin pretty quickly in that one. And then Adam Thompson coming in as a replacement. Not for me what they need. They've got with Latchman Bashir, Sam Kane, Luke Jacobson, Mitch Carpick, Mitchell Brown. Sorry, it's not like they're short of Lucy's. Stephen, what do you make of that signing?
Yeah, a little bizarre. You touched upon the locks, and I agree. I think they're a little thin on the ground. You'd imagine their two starting locks will be Tyler Ardron and probably Michael Allardyce. But after that, you're really thin. They've only got, from what I can see, two backup locks, and Naitoa Akoi and also Lachlan McConnell, who's a promising lock, a tall, rangy lock. But yeah, you wouldn't want too many injuries in that locking position. Real concern. No issues with them up front. I think they'll scrum. If you look at their talent, they're strong up front, especially at scrum time, and they've got some really good loose forwards, which will give them plenty of energy around the paddock. But I think the lock is the key one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the other old guy that they've signed. So obviously with Triple T and Brad Weber, they're fine in the scrum halves. And then Aaron Cruden comes in with Tyan Falcon and Caleb Trask as the fly halves. Steve, looking forward to Mr. Cruden back again.
Oh, you've got to be looking forward to Mr. Cruden back again. I mean, we'll give him a little bit of credit here. At least he's not 36 or 37 when he's coming back. I mean, he's only just over 30. He's still in a pretty decent little prime. I guess intellectually wise, he's going to be right up there still, like he was when he was playing for the All Blacks. He's still going to know the tricks. He's still going to know all those little bits and pieces. It's going to come down to what he can get with the physical probably aspect of his game. Probably less so than he did when he left here. But yeah, he's going to be key for them. He's going to be massive because by the sounds of what's happening, we're going to have a little bit of a Mr. D-Mac starting in that number 15 jumper again, which I think most people, I mean, I'm happy with that. So that's all that really matters. Put it back to 15. Don't worry about anything else. Let Cruden roll the dice at 10. If you want to make some changes later on, do what they do with Barrett. Swap them around. That's fine with me. So I think they're quite sussed in that area. But, of course, it's going to come back to that old attitude we always talk about. It's injuries, isn't it? Will Cruden stay fit for the whole season? Will McKenzie, I mean, they're raving that he played, that one game, or he played 40 minutes or something like that, and that's all the rage. I mean, let's get through a whole season for us, Damien, before you get too excited. Coaching-wise, yeah, Gatlin's going to be massive, but I did want to point on what you guys have already talked about. To me, Tyler Ardron is so much better in the back row. I wouldn't want him in my second row. So that's kind of, to me, he's a bit wasted in that area. I think at 6 or 8, he's so much more impactful. He gets around the field. He's a really bully runner. He smashes through his work. And I just think if I could have, dropped a couple maybe of those back rows and chucked in another couple of locks in there instead, Ardron in that back row would have been really good. But they're really stacked in there. I'm looking forward to what Peter Soakula can do. He looks amazing as well in the chances he's had. So they should be quite nicely looked up in that pack. I'm just not sold on that second row either for the Pro Chiefs. But we should get a bit of excitement out of them, surely, with the old man. It's like Stephen Donald 2.0, isn't it? He's back.
Yeah, let's just hope he doesn't miss any flights this time heading off to Argentina. But looking at those loosies, with Boshier, Kane, Karpik, we're talking smaller mobile loosies as well. We're not even talking about players who are sixers who can play kind of in the locks. It's going to be a relatively lightweight but extremely mobile pack that got there. 8 in the backs, and again, Auburn Ledger, I think, is going to be cooling his heels a lot because look, Antonetta Brown, Manu, Nankivell, Quintapaya, the 4 fantastic centres in there. Alamalo, Nanai Satoro, Sean Stevenson, what really interesting name here, and Kiki Naholo, obviously Sean Wainui as well, and Sam Nicholman. Yeah, plenty of options in the backs there and dangerous players. It's just the balance of that pack doesn't quite sit right for me. But they've got the playing. They've got one of the best teams on paper and a really good coaching setup as well.
You're doing Auburn Ledger a bit of an injustice there. Of course, remember, he played a lot of 10 during the Mitre 10 Cup, so Cruden's got to have that backup.
Well, he's already got Tyan Falcon and Caleb Trask at the back up there as well.
It's all Auburn Ledger. Come on.
Look,
get the lock streak flowing.
Auburn Ledger is a decent footy player, don't get me wrong. Not
super rugby level.
But, yeah. Well, to be fair, look, beginning of last season, where he stepped in when they had, McKenzie, Debrasini and Donald out. He had a decent couple of games. Would you want to rely on him as your first choice at Super Rugby level? No. As squad depth, though, that's a really good signing.
Paul, I was about to say. Oh, sorry, Steve. I was just about to say. The thing with Auburn Ledger, he's a great squad option. I know the Blues. When he was part of the Blues, I can recall him played second 5. Centre, and the fact that he can play first 5, I think he'd be a really good off the bench squad option. Although probably one little headache that Warren Gatlin's going to have is selecting who his best midfielders because he's got a lot of talent there. I think it'll be Anton Leonard-Brown and somebody else.
Yeah, I'd say he's got lots of. I think it might also be. Where does Anton Leonard-Brown want to see himself in the future? Is it at second 5'8" or is it at centre? Because Quintapaya is very much a centre, to be honest with you. Manu also, whereas Nankivell's more the 12, isn't he? He's more. So where does Anton Leonard-Brown want to play? That might also influence who he plays with as well. Now, Steve, okay, I'm now going to run through who's left from the Highlanders, and
you'll enjoy this one.
And so you can go make a cup of coffee and come back again, because this is going to take a while. So Children Lomax we talked about. Seth Angus Assi, so 2 props, only 2 props missing. You'll understand why I say that. Go on. Ricky Jackson and Ray Newell have gone from the hooking options, which probably isn't too bad. They've got Liam Coltman and the Ash Dixon still there. But Tom Franklin, Jackson Hemapo, one of those 6ers who can play in the row that we were talking about, the Chiefs could really love to have. Luke Whitelock, ex-captain. Elliot Dixon, Liam Squire. We're talking All Blacks, and quite a few of them here. They've got the same scrum halves. They've lost Marty Banks and Dan Hollinshead from the fly half position. Dan Hollinshead, injury's been really his problem. Richard Buckman, Matt Fellows from the centres there, 2 experienced guys. From the wings, Highland, Tavita Lee and Waisaki Naholo, and obviously Ben Smith at the back. That's pretty much a whole squad gone, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the whole team. We're recycling. Start again, start fresh, start anew. I mean, this is the complete encapsulation of what happens after a World Cup year, isn't it, for me? So many of those guys have really reset the cycle. Your Franklins, your Homopos, your Dixons, your Squires. I mean, a few of these guys were a bit of a cult legend, I guess you could say, in Dunedin. The Marty Banks, the Matt Faddis, the Richard Buckmans, those guys, they would be in a Highlanders jumper forever if they possibly could. They'll come back like Marty Banks when they're 40, and they'll just slot in there as comical relief to name the team on some Twitter account or something like that. So the real question marks, I think, about this team is what they can get out of these new guys. I'm a bit concerned they've actually picked a couple of players from Southland, which is a real worry. But the wings is really where we need to see a guy like Josh Mackay step up and really smash this season. He needs a huge year, and he's going to be a massive attacking outlet for this Highlanders side. He's going to be key. The 2 fullbacks they've brought in, I mean, they've got boots the size of stadiums to fill, don't they, with Ben Smith leaving there. So big boots for Michael Collins and Chris Kurandrani to fill those jobs.
Chris Kurandrani was playing wing for the for counties.
And he had a pretty good season too.
You think so? To me, he didn't live up to what I was expecting him to do for counties. The counties obviously got relegated. It's hard to impress in a losing team, admittedly. But I don't think he really stood up to me.
Any team that loses to Southland during the season surely definitely has to go as part of a bad squad. But I mean, as a guy who generally stood up to actually take a bit of responsibility of that team from the games of counties I did see, he was a guy that did take those carries that no one else wants to do, would spark chances that obviously didn't get created too much from the team. So I think it could be good if he had a better team around him, potentially. Obviously, this is where we find out, isn't it, with this sort of side. But what I'm most excited to see, and the yellow and red cards that are going to flow with it, quite possibly, will be Zane Capelli. Yes, get a bit of that into that back row. That's what I'm interested for.
Well, let's just. This is what a first choice back line could look like. I think teams would die for this kind of thing. So you're looking at Aaron Smith with Fukutava coming off the bench. You've got Josh Ioane with Mitchell Hunt coming off the bench. We've seen he can do that, and Josh Ioane's a great starter. In the middle there, you've got Rob Thompson, Tompkinson, Amanga Jensen, Tarangi Walden, 4 really good centres to choose from. I think Josh Mackay will probably start in that 15 jersey with, say, Chris Kurandrani and maybe Faianga Uku or Nabrua on the wings. That's a decent back line if they're given a platform.
I was impressed with what Nariki brought as well in the Mitre 10 Cup. So I thought he could be a guy that's really going to tear up this season too for the Highlanders. But on that back row, you speak about the back line, how good they are, but what about the back row? I would like to see something that has Hunt and Lynch's playing together at some capacity, like that dual 7 role. That could be really catastrophic for another team's ball retention if those 2 guys are scooting around, because they are quite the danger as a tandem 7 option.
So what? So Hunt, Lynch's, and then Frizzell in number 8 would give you a
Bring Capelli on at the end just to kill someone. Just absolutely smash them when they're getting tired.
And in some ways, I think they're going to have to start with that because the other guys are just so improved at this level. I was going to say there is Jesse Parity could become one of those Highlander legend guys. He could become a cult hero, not legend, sorry, cult hero guys, because again he looks like that cartoon character they have, doesn't he? Not the Highlanders, but the I've forgotten what it's called now. There's a cartoon character that looks just like Jesse Parity, who plays rugby in New Zealand. So yes, a great look. He could be a cult guy, but you're right. I think they're going to need to go mobile rather than power for that back row.
I think Jesse Parity unfortunately could also be a cult hero for all the wrong reasons, because he's another one that's been capable of cards as well. He does concern me. He's experienced, and I can totally understand why they've brought him in. A guy that I'm actually really excited about is Mikaeli too, the tall blindside flanker from Hawke's Bay. Listen, when he came back from injury last year, I thought he looked really, really good. He's a great line-out option, and he's a brilliant carrot. He's actually a big man that can make big yards up the middle of the paddock, a little bit like Shannon Frizzell. So there's some good options there. I don't, as much as we are different to Steve, I don't know if we'll see Lynchies and Dylan Hunt simply because of the size of the pack play at the same time. And not to mention, I reckon when you've got Liam Coltman on the paddock, he's just as good over the ball as any loose forward around. God, what's he worth? About three turnovers a game. Ash Dixon, also another mobile sort of hooker. Listen, the Highlanders remind me of that little fire truck that could, if you know what I mean. They will, I won't say they've got a chip on their shoulder. I think they're just one of those teams. Everybody, for some reason, just writes them off. But the beauty, one of the great advantages that they've got is that covered stadium down in Dunedin. I think it's fantastic for the type of game plan you want to play. It's no question. We already know what their game plan is at the moment. To me, the biggest difference is, and Steve said it at the top, Ben Smith is such a loss to this team. There was once upon a time it felt like the Smiths were running this team. Was there a third Smith or was there two Smiths?
Fletcher Smith was there.
Yeah, Fletcher was down as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost felt like the Smiths were actually running this particular team. But yeah, that's pretty much the interesting thing. I'm also expecting a real big season from Thomas Umaga Jensen. This guy's a really big guy. If you've ever stood close to him, man, he's over 6'1", and he's a very, very direct centre. And he's a guy who could have a breakout season as well. And did I mention Tiariki Ben Nicholas? You could be sitting on something really special there. Problem is, how much game time is he going to get when we mention some of those other names?
I think that the other thing they've got going their way is that obviously we have these two game rest periods that you have to do for all of the All Blacks, and we look through this list and there's not many who are going to get caught up in that, apart from Aaron Smith. He's probably about the only guy that they're going to have to rest at some point this season. Everyone else they can play the whole way through if they want to, whereas other teams will at some point have to rest players. And we've seen what they did to Rico Iwani last season. It just destroyed his season when he had a couple of weeks off. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. So yeah, they should have the freedom of that. The other really big thing is their attack coach. I'm a massive fan of Mr. Brown, and I'm not a massive fan of him trying to outdo me on the old hat stakes, mind you. So he needs to cut that out straight away with the old flat cap. But anyway, I think it's a rebuilding year for them because there's been so much turnover in players. But as you say, I think they could surprise a few people, but it's still going to be a long season for them, I think.
Yeah, you kind of stole my last couple of points I wanted to put there on the Highlanders. Yeah, but it's so easy to talk about the players. But I think what's going to be massive about this team is Tony Brown. You've stolen all that away, but that's fine. He is huge. Josh Ioane is going to just relish having Tony Brown there again. His play is going to be massive, what those two can do together. Also, you'd spoken about rest periods. Highlanders start on the bye. I don't think that is a good start. This is the second season in a row they've been shafted by really stupid bye times. They're really long periods of the season. and they just go straight through. So that's going to be huge for them to not play that first week and then have to go a long period before they get their second bye. So poor old Highlanders, but I mean, you get sick of saying it, don't you? Every year I've been saying this. Everyone writes off the Highlanders, and then look what happens. We come in and just kick everyone's butt. So bring it on. Another season, let's do it again. The Highlanders are pretty much bar the Crusaders, the South Island dominance of just continually making amazing plays before any of you Northerners can even spot that they've got half an inch of talent. There you go.
Paul, I was going to say, with so many new guys in a squad, just two little points. One's a bit of an elephant in the room, but just before I get to that, I actually think this particular player could have an absolute breakout season because I actually do rate him. Just in terms of who you think might be looking at the squad, the exciting thing about the Highlanders is probably got more new players than any of the other squads, and I'm picking there might be a couple of guys that are going to have breakout seasons. Now you're probably going to think I'm on drugs because it's a bit of an elephant in the room. But as a rugby player, I've actually got a bit of time for Manaki Selby Rickett. I actually think pre his misdemeanor, he's a very, very good footballer. He's always been one of Southland's best, and he is a very, very good line-out forward, very good exponent in the air. He kind of puts his body around on and off the field. I shouldn't have said that. But I just think if he's one player, if given an opportunity, I really think he could have a breakout season. Your thoughts, guys?
I think based on that, like you say, the Highlanders are a team that have to give players probably more of a chance than other teams because they've got so much fresh talent coming through. They can't just rely on playing those same 15 players every single game. They're going to have to blood guys, and they're going to have to pick and choose who it's going to be. So that people have to get chances. So if there's even going to be a team that does give these guys a chance to really burst out of it is going to be the Highlanders. And how many years now? Like I said, we've been seeing it for years now. They just keep doing it. We've seen all these amazing players come from nowhere, even Southland. I mean, Elliot Dixon, we will never forget you, good sir.
Well, Selby Ricketts wasn't a name that rang any bells, but yeah, as you say, convicted for assault for kicking a prone victim in the head. Geez, no, that's not.
Don't worry about that.
Not
what about Stags Player of the Year for about 3 seasons in a row? That's what you should be focusing on.
Yeah.
There you do. Okay, well, we'll move on from that one then. Finally, then, the Blues. Is this the season that the Blues can actually win more games than they lose?
Gonna need more than 15 minutes, mate.
So looking at some players who've left, a couple of props who most people won't have even recognised. Lenny Apasai has gone up to the Sunwolves, Matt Moles, leaving James Parsons as the number one choice again. A bit of a strange one there. They let Scott Scrafton go down to the Hurricanes again. An issue for squad depth there. In the Lucies, Jed Brown, Matt Matchich, Jimmy Tupu. I don't think there's any kind of big losses there. Augustine Pulu, not a big loss. I wouldn't have thought there. In the centres, Levi Amua, Martin Nonu, Sonny Bill Williams. So obviously experience there, but perhaps didn't get much game time out of them anyway, to be honest with you. Milani Nanai had a really cracking season last season, so I think he's probably the biggest loss actually for them. And then also Caleb Clark, obviously away with the Sevens, so I'm not sure how much he'll get to play. Michael Collins and Jordan Traynor. Looking at the names they've lost, it seems like they've got rid of quite a lot of dead wood out of this team. So I perhaps I'm being a bit harsh there. Perhaps I would have kept a couple. Perhaps I'd have kept try to keep a couple of those hookers and let James Parsons go. But on the whole, yeah, they've not lost the sort of big names. Steve,
yeah,
as a Blues fan.
Yeah, you did right. There's probably a couple of others I would have cut adrift. I mean, to say there's a couple of sort of surprise selections as well. Tony Lambourne, I must admit, I'm a little bit surprised about that. I've always viewed Tony as a probably tradesman Mitre 10 Cup player who played for the USA at the World Cup last year. I really don't know if he's topping super rugby level. I'm a couple of other surprises. They've picked a couple of real young guys. Jack Hyten, I don't even think he's played for North Harbour, fresh out of Westlake Boys, so a little bit of a surprise there. Yeah, I suppose on the surface they're a little. To me they kind of look stronger. Listen, when I'm looking at this blue side, I factor Bowden Barrett out of this team right now. Seriously, I really do, and I think we should do that when we're looking at this blue side, because he's not available till April. You know, in my opinion, may as always not be there. So there's an awesome opportunity.
He's good for trying to sell a few tickets, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, the thing about it, if you start winning games, you're going to sell tickets anyway.
Yeah.
But it's up to one of these three first fives to own that position. If they after 1 month have tried three different first fives, then they're in trouble, because it means whoever they've been playing there hasn't worked, and that's exactly what they've done in the past. Listen, they've got some good pickups in Narawa, the flyer from Bay of Plenty, but the Blues always look good out wide. But have they got the work ethic, like a lot of the other sides, to basically make life a little bit easy for their halves? To me, that halfback area still, they still look weak at halfback. As far as I'm concerned, it still looks like an area of weakness, and it's important that the forwards do enough to lay a platform and make life really easy for these halfbacks and first fives, because as far as I'm concerned, if it doesn't happen, it's going to be the same old.
Yeah, so let's look at the amongst forwards. In theory, with Carl Tuangafi, Ofa Tuangafasi, you've got two decent props there with Retinar, Mafileo backing them up, Alex Hodgson. They should have. That's when you got All Blacks plus decent backup. Kurt Eklund had a good season with Bay of Plenty, so should they've got something there potentially in the hook. Problem is, you then look at the locks. Patrick Tuipulotu and somebody, because the other ones, it's just not there, is it really? Andy Carroll, Colloway, Tuti, Goodhue, Pearce. There's not the that engine room to me doesn't strike me. That won't strike opposition with fear, will it, Steve?
Well, I kind of would disagree with you on that one. I'm a bit of a fan of Kelly Toyoti. I think he's been probably one of the most impressive Blues forwards over the last season or two. I think he's probably got a decent future ahead of him in that second row. He would slot quite nicely in with Tuipulotu and into that type five. So I think, on the front five of the first selection, they're probably not too bad in terms of names. So I'm going to go completely against both of you on this, because to me, Tony Lamborn is the sort of player the Blues need, because he's not a, how do I describe it, an individual brilliant guy that's going to completely tear this competition to pieces. He's not going to do that. He's a Reuben Thorne is what he is. That's probably the best way I describe him. He's a guy who's going to do the stuff you don't see, the stuff that doesn't impress you, and the stuff that ultimately wins games. He's a down, he'll smash every ruck, he'll carry the ball up 1 metre, get you front foot ball, and you won't see him for most of the match. That's the sort of guy he is. He's played Super Rugby before. He played a little bit for the Hurricanes. He's played plenty of seasons in my team cup. He's just a team player. He's a unity player, and he's kind of a leader, if you will. So it's not really, he's not going to do the sort of things that a lot of, I think, what the Blues kind of suffer, the kind of Carlos Spencer sort of image of just being this brilliant guy that's just going to completely clean up the Crusaders all by himself, run to the corner, pull the fingers, and then kick a conversion from sideline. He's not going to do that for you. The Blues have enough of that already. He's the kind of guy that's going to just knuckle down and do that dirty work that they kind of struggle to get done, I think, especially in that pack. They have a guy that just wants to bulldoze the opposition and make those big breaking meters, and that's where I think he's going to be a really, really good asset for them. But I agree with the rest of what you say. Moving into the halves, they're going to struggle to get any kind of resemblance of outstanding play through those 9 and 10 channels. And the question, probably that Paul maybe answer the best, is what is young Joe Marchant going to bring from Harlequins? That's the big question. I want to see him in action, see what he can bring to this Blues team, whether he's going to actually be the goods or not.
I don't think it'll be a hell of a lot if they don't get that go forward ball. Seriously, I'm just a little bit concerned. You've got those halves, you've got a number 8, and we all know how good he can be. Obviously, there's been a lot of a lot of said about Akira Ioane in recent times, and I think it's really important. It's, often heard former All Black Murray Mexted basically say your number 8 and your halfback have got to have an understanding, and I don't think Akira's had any understanding with his halfbacks, simply because they've always changed all the time. They've never really been consistent to be there, and unfortunately, Akira's form has been up and down. On saying that, there's a huge opportunity for Akira Ioane, especially with the All Black number 8 position being open. And it's really important that he grow and learn very, very, very quickly. One player I do like as a pickup, and he'll give you 100% of work. And I'm really surprised. I suppose the Chiefs have got so many loose forwards, but they could have used him as a lock. Is James Tucker? I know Paul rates James Tucker as well. He's a good, honest footballer, and he's the sort of guy that will give you work rate, and you can slot into lock or 6. Probably good off the bench.
He'll give you work rate. He'll also pick up a few cards as well. He's perhaps again like that Tony Lamborn. He's going to hit things all day long. Question is how legal some of those hits are going to be. But again, he's going to give you that mongrel which you kind of need a bit of. I think they've got a decent set of loosies there. I mean, Gibson, if he can stay fit, Dalton Papali'i as well, Tom Robinson. I think they've got a decent set of loosies there. Sotutu could end up being actually. He finished the season as first choice 8 for Auckland, I think, didn't he? And also for so he might be the guy. It might be his breakout season, which would be an interesting one. But you're right. Finlay Christie, Sam Nock, Jonathan Ruru, none of them really jump out of you as being the man. And if you haven't got the man, you've got no man, basically. Then again, Oteri Black, Perifetta, Harry Plummer, all decent fly halves at my 10 cup level. The question is, which one are you going to pick? And you've got to stick with one, haven't you, as you said? Because again, Oteri Black has just promised and then got injured. Stephen Perifetta, again, seems to be injury prone, and Harry Plummer didn't transfer his Maya 10 Cup form to the big stage last year. The other big thing that's going to be really interesting to people is Rieko Ioane. I think he's looking at playing 13 rather than the wing. So he's going to be it's going to be interesting to see his transition into the centres, as you say, with Joe Marchand inside him probably, and then nowhere a good call, a good pickup. But the rest of those outside backs, I mean, Matt Duffy he was in the All Blacks reckoning, but has faded. Jordan Highland did okay for the Highlanders last year, and for Northland, but yeah, I'm just again, that's going to need some putting together.
It's the same old questions with the Blues, isn't it? Every time you look at the team, it's like you see all these players, and it's like 2 years ago, this guy was going to be the answer to this problem with the Blues. Peter Feta was the guy, give him a season or two, and he's going to be that number 10 that the Blues have wanted for so long. Even Sam Nock was kind of near that sort of reckoning not so long ago as well. So it's really disappointing. All these guys with all this potential and supposed ability that it doesn't seem to transform. Once they come down to players, as they come down to coaching, I mean, you can blame everything you want, but the fact of the matter is, at this sort of level, if you're going to be good enough, you're going to be good enough here, aren't you? You're not going to, you can't blame coaches and that for not making you good enough. If you've made it to a professional level like this, you've got to stand up to the task, and that's what the Blues really have struggled with to do. So you don't mention Barrett at all in this team, but I'm going to be interested to see if or what effect he does make months down the track, and the Blues are probably out of the playoffs running, and just how that affects the team. So that's having that guy that can kind of command that backline a bit better, what effect he's going to have. Also, Jordan Highland, I mean, it was great to have Highland at the Highlanders, and I'm kind of disappointed that he's gone back to the Blues now. It just kind of rolled off the tongue.
Yeah, it worked well, even if it's spelt totally differently.
It still worked.
It worked fantastically. Yeah, Highland. Yeah, you go back, mate. Even if you're a Northlander and it was too cold for you down there, get back down there. They play indoors. It's not so bad.
I was going to say, guys, two things stand out to me in the back line. Who your starting midfielders. If you're going to start Rieko Ioane as centre, all of a sudden you're slotting somebody into second five. So you're looking at a completely new combination there. And also your fullback, your options at fullback is, I see in the very first game or preseason game against Counties Manukau against the Chiefs, they actually played Duffy at fullback. So I kind of look around, and maybe your other option is Perifeta. Perifeta, I actually believe at his best could be a quality first five, but once again he suffers inconsistency. Remember that game he played against the Lions? When was that? 2017, and he quite looked the goods in that game. But if you even think back to that game, there were inconsistencies.
That was the Higher West.
Who played that night? No, Eli West came on. The second half. Scored the winning try at the end, but it was Perifeta.
Oh, okay. Perifeta started. Okay, sorry. Yep.
Perifeta started that through that beautiful cutout pass to Rico Ioane, who scored in the corner. But even if you think back to that game, he was inconsistent. It was either rocks or diamonds, and nothing's changed with this guy. Taranaki at times play him at fullback as well. So I just wonder if it's for him, if it's just an out-and-out confidence. I actually think he's the best first five out of the three, potentially. I think Otero Black is probably no more than a tradesman-like first five who'll do an adequate job for you. He'll kick his goals. He'll run the cutter, but when I mean run the cutter, he probably passes more. But to me, he doesn't attack the line. Then you look at somebody like Plummer. He looks to me like a very static sort of first five. No, I've got concerns already.
Okay then.
Lacks confidence, Plummer. To me, he doesn't have that confidence in his ability. I found that last season. Just come on off the bench. You need a guy who's going to be rock solid and just believe in what you can do. And I think he lacked that big time. And then his performances just killed him.
He didn't transfer his minor 10 Cup form to Super Rugby at all last year. Kicks he was making easily at minor 10 Cup level. We're going nowhere near at Super Rugby level. Yeah, the stage really got to him. Yeah.
Top 2 inches.
Yep.
I think so. And he put in one of the best cross kicks in the season. The only problem is it was caught by Tavita Lee playing for the opposition.
There's some of these ones that sometimes they go your way, sometimes they don't. But yeah, you say there are some real interest. It's going to be. It looks like a bit of a makeshift back line. There's got because I'm guessing they're going to start Ruru, Perifeta, Joe Marchant, Rico Ioane, with, as you say, Duffy probably at fullback. I mean, he's really solid under the high ball, and then Nora and maybe one of the Tilliers on the wing, because Tony Lehu played on the wing quite a bit last year, didn't he? So even though he's down as a centre, so we might see him on the wing a bit for you. So there you go. Well then, boys. So from what we've said then, as a consensus, do we think what we're looking at basically Crusaders, Chiefs, and then Crusaders, Chiefs, Hurricanes, Blues, Highlanders, or Highlanders, Blues? Is that what? Go on. Okay, Steve. How do you see it?
Shot to the heart. Oh dear. I'd back my Highlanders to do better than that. I'd probably put them in third. My toss up is where the Chiefs and the Hurricanes go, but I'll probably agree with you on there on Crusaders, Chiefs, Highlanders, Hurricanes, Blues.
So, Steve?
I'm happy.
I'm going to go Chiefs, Crusaders, then I'm going to go Highlanders.
Hurricanes, Blues. Good man.
I think it's basically we've got a split a split conference where you've got Crusaders and Chiefs at the top, and the other three. And they're basically those the probably Crusaders, but it could be Chiefs. Good to be back there, Steve. Stephen, sorry. In the top two, and then the other three, I think, can finish in any order. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be. I mean, Christian makes a good point in here. He reckons that the Blues could improve last year, but they need to start the season well. And I think that's going to be key for all three of those teams, the Hurricanes, Highlanders and Blues. Whichever one starts the season well or best will probably top those three, is my reckoning. And with the Highlanders having a bye, which doesn't help them, the Hurricanes going on the road to South Africa and South America then the Blues starting at home. The Blues have got an opportunity to set the early tone of the season. Well, boys, any final points?
I'm about Super Rugby now.
Yeah, I think we should.
I do have one big question for you, Steve, which is what's the prediction for the card count?
Oh, jeez. With Angus Cardner still in the reckoning this season, which is just delightful to see the other day. Maybe we're going to have a season we'll crack 200. Go on, why not?
What was the total last year?
Oh, you're around 160-ish, I think.
Okay. Actually, it's something I need to look up, and I've not read through fully, but is the new tackle regulations and warnings and stuff. Guys, to keep it simple, stupid, is how the rugby law should be. Don't overcomplicate them, which is what it seems like they're going to be doing, and confusing fans yet again with another thing of warnings and bans and whatever. Just we don't need another type of card. Stephen?
Oh, I don't know what to say, to be really honest. I know, as you know, I watch a bit of the Northern Hemisphere competition. I saw Ben Smith get a red card the other week, and to be brutally honest, if it's a second earlier, the other guy gets a red card. I just hope referees have actually got common sense to look at a situation. But to my way of thinking, it's gone black and white. Where if it kind of looks like high, it probably is high. It's in the same way that you see the deliberate knockdown in sevens. Referees now see a yellow card. Players are already walking off before the referee pulls the card out of his pocket. Nothing changes.
The quicker you sit down, the quicker the clock starts. Anyway, thank you everybody who's watching the live chat. Don't forget, 8 p.m. every Tuesday night we're going to be here. Next week, we'll be previewing Super Rugby and the Six Nations together as a whole rather than the individual conferences. Tonight we covered New Zealand, obviously. Links down below for the South Africa Conference, also the Africa Conference and the Australia Conference. Thank you very much, Steve and Stephen. It has been an absolute pleasure yet again. And boy, let's just get into some rugby.